Hi, this is Phil from the UK rock band Final Coil. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about some of the gear that we use on stage, and I'm also going to take a few moments to talk to you about some of this cool flashing stuff, which is more of a kind of recording setup. So the first thing I'm going to do is to talk you through the pedal board that I use. It's a Pedal Train Classic Junior, and it's gone through a number of kind of evolutions as I try and get the best setup for live usage, and I think I've finally got it to a place where it's comfortable to use. The first thing on my board is a Line 6 G10S, which is a wireless unit, and to be honest, when I first bought it I was a little bit skeptical about whether something so small would be able to retain its battery life and operate safely, but actually it's a really good wireless unit. The only thing I have to be careful about is if I start throwing my guitar around on stage, I run the risk of snapping this little unit off at the neck, so I have to be really careful. Aside from that, it's absolutely spot on. The next thing on my pedal board is a tuner, and this is the point where it starts to look a bit like a Boss showroom. So this is the Boss TU3 tuning pedal. It's very clear on stage, which is useful, but to be honest, the thing that I like about it the most is the ability to mute the sound. Our gigs do tend to be very hot and very visceral, which means instruments get knocked out of tune, and I prefer not to blight the gig by tuning up between every single song. The next pedal on my board is something rather new. It's a Boss SY1, it's a synthesizer pedal. You can see behind me that we use quite a lot of synths in recording, and one of the challenges is trying to get the sound that we have in the studio out on stage without using banks of samplers. So this is the SY1, and I can use it to create the synth textures that you get at the beginning of songs like You Waste My Time from Systems and Memory. I modulate it with the dot expression pedal, which is at the bottom right of the board. The next two pedals on the board, I've got a flanger, the BF3, and a chorus pedal, the CE5. I don't use these over much actually, but both of them bring out a more atmospheric side to the band. The CE5 I tend to use to colour clean guitars just to give a bit more sparkle. The flanger, on the other hand, I tend to use more to bring a bit more kind of violence to it, to a heavy guitar riff. I use it in much the same way that Rich tends to use its boost pedal, and I find that particularly if you're doing some sort of palm muting, it can sound really cool. The next two pedals on the board are Reverb and Delay. I've got a Giga Delay, which is now quite old, but still one of the best delay pedals out there, and the RV6, and I use both of them in much the same way. So the Giga Delay lets you tap in the tempo to kind of get the sound that you want. The RV6, so at the moment I have it set to a dynamic shimmer, which means that the louder you play, the clearer the notes are, the quieter you play, the more it shimmers, which was perfect for some of the songs on The World We Left Behind for Others. The final pedal on the board is a distortion pedal, and although my amp has a fantastic overdrive channel, I've always preferred to use pedals off the board, and the Boss DS2 has a really kind of gritty, grungy tone, which I find goes really well with my Les Paul. I haven't got that out at the moment. This is actually my recording guitar. It's a fairly battered Yamaha Pacifica, and strangely I've always found this is one of the most comfortable guitars to record on. Even on stage I always use Les Pauls. So this is my amp. It's a Blackstar HD Club 50 Mark II, and it's got a matching cab as well. It's got a number of really useful features, one of which is the ability to step down the power from 50 watts to 5 watts, which is particularly useful when I'm practicing at home, as we all are through this kind of isolation. The other feature that I particularly like is the ability to record via USB. and although I do use a Behringer V-Amp Pro in some of my demo tracking, when it comes to actually recording guitar that I want to use in a sort of final production, then I always go through the Blackstar. Okay, so this is the System 1. As you can see, it's got lots of flashing lights, and that is absolutely not the reason that I bought this. At the moment, it's set up on a kind of like industrially acidy sort of sound. And I can also trigger it with the rhythm section that I've got. As you can see, you can create really simple loops. You can use it to generate all sorts of sounds and textures. And to be quite honest, in the recording time that I've had, I've barely scratched the surface of what you can do with this equipment.